The disguise 3-4 scheme isn't a defense. It's a chess match. And if you draft the wrong pieces, the entire thing collapses. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to scout every position in the disguise 3-4 scheme, so you draft players who don't just fit, but dominate. What's up, everyone? This is Night here again, and now in this episode, we're going to go over how to properly scout and draft for a disguise 3-4 defense. As we all know, this scheme is built on deception. You need symmetry and flexibility. You're not trying to overpower offenses, you're trying to confuse them. That means your players can't just be talented, they need the right traits, the right intelligence, and the right athletic profile. You're not just looking for stars, you're looking for roles, positional scheme responsibilities, pieces of the larger machine that forms the entire defense. If you draft the wrong roles, the disguise breaks. You draft the wrong traits, and the front will collapse. Your scouting has to be ruthless. So the first thing you're going to want to do is set up what your roster is going to look like for the upcoming season. And to do that, when you're on your main franchise menu, you're going to want to go to GM's office and go down to team salaries. Then, when you're on this screen, you're going to want to jot down these positions before we get everything started. Obviously, we're going to be starting with left edge. So you're going to want to jot down left edge 1, 2, and 3, right edge 1, 2, and 3, D tackle 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, Sam 1 and 2, Mike 1 and 2, Will 1 and 2, cornerback 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, free safety 1 and 2, and strong safety 1 and 2. Now, once you have that all jotted down, you're going to want to go by position. So like for instance here, at left edge, we have Jonathan Grenard is signed for the 2026 season. So you want to strictly look for the next season. This is what you're going off of. So we have left edge 1 Grenard. He is definitely a edge 1. So we're going to jot him down with his age and overall. For edge 2, let's see, Richter is not signed. And with his age and overall, we're probably not going to want to bring him back. He doesn't really fit the edge 2 position. However, we do want to build Tyrion Ingram Dawkins. He's only 22. He's signed for another 4 years. He is on the books for next year. He could easily become a left edge 2 for us. At the worst, a left edge 3. But based off what we have here, I'm going to jot him down as left edge 2. And then we're going to put down his age and overall. And then for left edge 3, we have nobody. So I'm going to put none. Then we move to right edge 1, 2, and 3. So Van Ginkel, obviously, that's our right edge 1. Turner is our right edge 2. And right edge 3, we have Chaz Chambliss on here, but he's not necessarily have the attributes that I'm looking for. So I would actually not include him even though he's on here. He's either a cut candidate, a fill-in piece that can move around the defense, someone you can throw on a practice squad if you have no choice, or you can try to develop him for what I'm looking for. Like I said, we're not going to put him, so I'm going to put none for right edge 3. And then you do the same thing for every position. So D tackles, we have D tackle 1, 2. I'm going to put down Jalen Redmond as 3, but then I'm also going to put parentheses next to him that says re-sign because he's not on our roster for next year, but I do want to bring him back. So you kind of make your decisions on how you want to do your defense, and you go through every one of the positions, same thing through here, and go through everything that you're going to do. And once you're done, you should have a board that kind of looks like this. So as you can see, I have all the positions, like I had said. I have the players, their ages, their overalls, and then if there's ones that I'm re-signing, I have that on there. And then if it's one like Harrison Smith is likely to retire, so I put that next to his name. So next thing you do is make a priority list and a depth needs list. So your priority should be the 5 positions that are the most important to you in the upcoming draft, most likely. So for me, obviously we've got left edge 3 that's, has nobody, right edge 3. We have Sam 2, Mike 2, Will 2, cornerback 3, 4, and 5. And that's all the ones with none. But then when I go through for ages, I am looking at right edge 1 for Van Ginkel, but that's okay for now. But I am looking at Hargrave, defensive tackle 2. He's 32. Mike 1 Wilson is 30. And then, of course, Harrison Smith is 36. And then I'm also looking at Theo Jackson for free safety 2. He's 26, going on 27. He'll be entering his regression years soon, and he's already a 70. And then Ward, same thing. He's 25 and he's only a 69. So then you formulate what your priority and depth needs are. So for me in the draft, I want to look at cornerbacks 3 and 4, or possibly 1 and 2. You know, they could end up taking over for Murphy and Rogers, and Murphy and Rogers drop to, 2, 3, or 3, 4, and so on. But, cornerback's a high need. So I've got cornerback 3 and 4, Sam 2, Mike 2, and Will 2. And then for depth, I'm going into my left edge, my right edge to D2, D4, DT5, cornerback 5, and then free safeties 1 and 2, strong safeties 2. Now, the only catch here is with Harrison Smith. He retired in real life, so I'm going to retire him in the game one way or another, whether that's me just cutting him from the team and making him a punter to where he doesn't get signed and he's retired, or what. He'll be gone. So I may look at him in the draft board for the main 5, but it all depends on what the drafting area looks like and what I'm seeing when we get to that point. But this is what you should have. So once this is all set up, then you can go ahead and set up your actual scout board. So now by doing that, obviously we're going to go to choose draft class. I always do auto-generated rookies. And then you're going to want to go to scouts and delete every scout that's on here, because you're going to be setting them up for your own needs, stuff like that. I don't ever pay attention to what they have on here for them. And then you're going to go look at regional breakdown, and you're going to view region prospects. But before we get into that, I want you to remember that most players do waste their scouts. In Disguise 3-4, though, every scout matters. You never want to double scout positions. You never want to put your 3-star regional scout on your national. You want to put it on the largest cluster of defensive prospects in a regional aspect, not the national. You want to use your national scout on the deepest position group that's of need. Not necessarily the most important one, but the one that's the deepest. For focus scout positions further down, you typically only want to use those for 3 positions. That's cornerbacks, free safeties, and edge groups. Reason being is all 3 of those groups have fatal flaw risks that aren't necessarily seen just by looking at attributes and stuff right off the top of your head. If you don't have them fully unlocked, stuff like that. There can be signs that will show you issues, but those 3 are typically the hardest to get it down pat correct most of the time. Now, obviously, if you have other needs, you can use that for focus as well, but typically that's how I try to handle mine. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to view region prospects, and we're just going to take a gander. So obviously we know what our most important positions are. So the first thing I'm going to look at is cornerbacks. So I want to go ahead and look at corners and see how we're looking from there. And I'm going to go through, and I'm only going to write down anything that's rounds 1 through 4. I'm not going to write down day 3s, undrafted free agent, stuff like that, but I'm going to do that by every single section. That way I can determine, based off of my needs, what's what in each region. So for instance, we'll start off with cornerbacks and national. So we see we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. We have 17 cornerbacks in the national. Then we're going to go to the West. We've got 3. Central, we've got 3. Northeast, we've got 5. Southeast, we've got 6. So I write all that down, and then I keep going down the list. So like my next one would be Sam. We'll go to Sam. Starting in national, I've got a total of 3. West is 0. Central is 0. Northeast is 0. Southeast is 3. And I do that for every position, including ones that I'm not necessarily looking at, because I want a broad picture of everything that's available. And once it's all done, you should have something that looks like this. So as you can see, I've got everything broken out. So then I go through, and then for national, the highest category is cornerbacks. Happen to be my number 1 need, but it's also the highest category with 17. So that's going to be my 2-star scout. Then looking at the West, the highest was defensive tackle. The Central was a tie between corners and edge, but you never want to double up what's in the national. So that will make the Central the edge. The highest in the Northeast would be cornerbacks. Again, you don't want to double up, so the next highest is edge. So the Northeast is going to be an edge. And then in the Southeast, the highest is cornerbacks, edge, and then D tackle. Well, you don't want to double up on cornerbacks again. We've already got quite a few edges being looked at in two different areas. So this time, just to get a little bit more information, and since D tackle is somewhat of a need as well, I'm going to go ahead and make Southeast D tackle. So I'm going to have 2-star national on cornerbacks, 3-star in the West on D tackles, and then 1 stars in the Central, Northeast, and Southeast on edge, and D tackle respectively. So now we go ahead and get our scouts set up. In order to do that, we just go back out. We're going to go to manage scouts and then go to our free agents. So the first thing we're looking for is our national. So we want a 2-star cornerback that's national, and then you want to see what their other abilities are. So depending on what offensive needs you have, in this video we're only doing the disguise 3-4, so we're not doing offensive, so I'm just going to focus on defense right now. So I've got safety as an option for secondary expertise, wide receiver as the other option. So we're going to go ahead and go with safety. So we're going to hire this, and now Haywood is going to be our national scout. Now, for the West is our 3-star. So once again, we're going to manage scouts. And we're going to look for D tackles this time. And this is going to be our 3-star. So we're going to see what 3-star options they have. Only one. It's D tackle and offensive tackle. So that's fine. Confirm. And that's going to be our West. And then we have our 1-stars. We've got 2 edges and a D tackle. So we'll do D tackle. And we're going to look, since we have 1-stars, we're going to look now. Remember, edge was another high one. So if we can find a D tackle with an edge secondary, we're going to do that for the Southeast. So we've got that. And then we needed 2 edges. So let's go down to the edges. And if you don't remember, in the Northeast, the other highest was defensive tackle with 2. Everything else was a 1. So if I can find an edge with a D tackle, that's a 1, which we do. We're going to bring that one in. And then for the Central, it really didn't matter because the only thing that was there was edge or corner. So any edge is going to work on that one. So we'll just find a 1-star. Let's look at running backs as a secondary. So now we've got all these. So we're going to want the 1 D tackle with an edge is going to be our Southeast. The edge with the D tackle is going to be our Northeast. And then the edge with the running back will be our Central. So now we have all of our scouts set up. And it might not always match here, but we can look. So we've got a green on National, nothing on West, nothing on Central, a green on Northeast, and a green on Southeast. This is where a lot of people make mistakes when they do scouts, is they try their best to just solidify all of these and try to get 10 greens, as many greens as they can. But the truth of the matter is it's just the strength of the region as far as what the very top prospect is concerned. So it's really only giving you the information on like the top couple of picks. Like for National, it's saying wide receiver, corner, and quarterback is the strengths. So if you don't pick one of those, it's not going to go very good for you. But when you sit here and actually look at scout at those positions, wide receiver, for instance, and a National, you've got quite a bit. But all in all, you don't really have that many. I mean, how many is that? Let's see. That's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15. That's less than we have for the cornerbacks and only 1 more than our defensive tackle or our edge. So, I mean, and some of them you're not going to want to draft, stuff like that. So, it doesn't really go into full depth. It's mainly because of look at all these round ones, go to quarterbacks. You don't have that many of them. You've only got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 of those. But why are they in the top region? Because they're the ones with the 3 top 5s. So that's why they're the strength. It's not because they have the most overall strength throughout the draft class, or even necessarily the most, best prospects in the draft. It's just the strength-wise in their projection they are projected to be the strongest. But what happens when these three, as you uncover it, and the talent ends up being a round 3 or a 4 draft pick, or a round 1 or 2, suddenly they're not the strength of the class anymore. Now you've wasted a national position on them. That's why you never want to go by the expertise as far as strengths for the regions. It will cost you every single time. You want to do it based off how I did it. Just do it based off of what your team needs are, and draft that way. Draft according to your game plan, not the game's game plan. All right, so now that we have all of that done, we can go ahead and we are done with all of that until we get to week 3. All right, and then once you make it to week 3, you're going to want to go into your regional focus scouting. So just choose your regional focus, and then here you're going to pick the positions obviously that you put in. So for like the West, we had defensive tackles, so we're going to go to D tackle. Central was edge, so we're going to set that to edge. Northeast was edge, that's set to edge. And then the Southeast was D tackle. Then once that's done, that's all you're going to do with all the scouting or whatnot to get to week 8. All right, and now once you get to week 8, you're going to go ahead and set your national focus now. So our national focus is corners, so we're just going to set it to corner. And then that's all you're going to do until you get to week 13. All right, so now we are at week 13. So what you want to do here is you're going to end up, before you do your scouting focus players, you're going to want to scout, and you're going to want to go ahead and build your draft board now. Now here, a player is going to go on your draft board if meets a couple of things. Either he has the physicals, he has the letter grades, he fits the role that you need him to get in. Because you only want to put them on there because essentially when you get to drafting, a player only gets drafted if he has no fatal flaws, has at least one elite trait, and he strengthens the disguise that we're looking for. So what I mean by that is we'll go position by position, and then I'll explain to you exactly what you're looking for on every single category. So for prospects, first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to start with edge rushers. So let's go ahead and go to edge rusher. So left edge and right edge in the disguised 3-4 scheme are both power rushers. So these are your chaos engines. They win with violence, leverage, and raw power. Your most important attributes for them is going to start off with the number 1 trait of power moves. So the first thing you want to do is just go to power moves, sort this. You only want to add players on to your board that have a grade of C or better. Really it's B or better, but you can do C's just to kind of see what you've got. Okay, once you have that, then you want to go to block shed. Now, I'm going to do something different. I don't like drafting 23-year-olds. A couple of you guys saw that in the last video. I don't draft, I said just for me, I don't like wasting developmental years. I like drafting 21, 22-year-olds. You can do 23s if you want though, but it's going to be the same process. Just skip that part. So after that, the next thing I want to look for is block shed. So I've already got all that. Anybody with below a C, I'm removing. So this guy, he's gone. So I'm going to go ahead, sort this back to where I have just the top 4. And next thing we're going to look for is going to be tackle. They need to be able to tackle. D tackle doesn't work. That's A, B, and B. Okay, he's good. Next thing is play recognition. So you want to go to play rec, you got B, C, and C. So they meet all of that criteria. So now you want to go look at a couple of key physicals. So we're down to only 3 on the left edge. Now it's time for the physicals. So for those 3, what you're going to want to look for is strength. Needs to be great or elite. If it's not great or elite strength, they're off your board. He's got great, good or solid, good or solid. Off my board, off my board. They're good, but they're still not where I want them to be. Yes, I even removed the top 5 prospect because he doesn't fit our scheme on what we need. You can't have a power rusher that only has good strength. Now, you might be able to make it work, but I prefer to stick with my philosophy on it, and this is how I handle it. So then the only other thing I look for is going to be acceleration. It needs to be good or higher. He has a chance for good, so he's going to stay on the board. So right now, that's the only edge on our board. Now we're going to go to right edge. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to start on the attributes. Power moves. Again, I'm going to allow anyone with a C or higher. And then one thing I didn't check, and I forgot to mention it, is if you have anything that's not revealed yet, you want to add them in. But with this being a focus and a couple of these, everything should be there. Let me check left edges just in case. We do have some, so I'll have to go back through. So let me do that. So now that we have that, we'll go back through all these again. Sorry. I know I'm backtracking a little bit, but we got power moves. Let's check block sheds again. So, so D's off, D's off. Is this F? Not on our board. Okay. So let me resort them out. Again, 23, he's gone. So we're down to the 2. And then it's play rec. They're both C's. And then tackle. Undisclosed. So then we go to the strength again on the physicals. Let me make sure I've got the 2 up at the top that I want. There we go. And roll over to strength. Good to solid, not going to work. So we're down to just Brian Huron anyway. So I did all that for nothing. But normally you want to check that. So now we're going to go to right edge. We've got our selected. I'm going to remove the 23-year-olds again for my part. And this will slim down your options, but like I said, I do it for my reasoning. You do whatever you feel is best. So now let's go to our attributes. We've already got the power moves because that's what we started with. So now again, we're going to go to block shed. And we're going to see what we have there. D gone, F gone, F gone, D gone, D gone. So now we're going to want to resort them out again. Okay. And now we're going to go to tackle. D gone. So now we just have our 4, and then it's play rec. And it's B, 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 and C. So they're all good for now. So now we're going to go to physicals for them. And we're going to go over to strength. And again, if I don't have at least great strength, they're gone. Good, gone, great stays, solid, gone, good, gone. So for edge, that's what I've got. I've got 2 edges. We're looking at Edward Beckwith and Brian Huron. Okay? Next, we're going to go to D tackles. These are the anchors. If your nose tackles are weak, your entire disguise package collapses. So the number 1 attribute we look for on D tackles is strength. So you're going to start off on physicals, and you're going to sort. On here, it's great or higher. Really, you only want elite, but we will look at players with great. In this class, unfortunately, we have nobody with even a possibility of having elite, so we're kind of stuck with the greats. And then same thing, I'm removing 23-year-olds. So, and then after strength, the only other thing I want to look for is I want to make sure that they're 300 pounds plus for the most part. Like 299, pretty close. 255, 306, 340, 348, 355. These guys are perfect. Little on the small side, but he will fit if he fits the rest. So I'm not going to delete him just because of 1 pound. Anybody that's 300 plus stays, I'll take, I can waive it a little for 299 if the rest of the traits match. So now that we have that, the next thing we're going to look for is going to be the attributes themselves. So we're going to go to attributes. We're going to go down to the bottom. The first attribute we're going to look at is block shedding. So they're all C or higher. So the next thing we're going to look at is power moves. Oh, we have D there, D there. So I remove them. Now we're going to look at hit power. C, okay, unknown, B, and A. And then the last thing that we're going to look at is going to be awareness. And they're all up there, so we're good. We're going to leave them for now. The main things that you want to watch for is making sure that you're not getting that poor strength and stuff like that. So we've got 4D tackles now. Now we can move on to SAMs. Now, for SAM linebackers in this package, they're your edge setting enforcer. So you don't necessarily need a run stopper. Like I can even go over that like D tackles. You're signing nose tackles. Neither of our options for D tackle is a nose tackle archetype according to Madden. They're power rushers. But they fit what our nose tackle plays as in the role of our scheme. So that's why I say don't pay attention to archetypes. It's one of the biggest mistakes people make when they're drafting. Archetypes aren't ideal. They lean you that direction, but they're not necessarily how they play depending on the scheme that you're running. Okay, so now for a SAM, my number one attribute that I'm looking for is going to be block shed on this one. So we're going to look up anybody with a C or that's, question mark, which as of right now, that's going to be all of them. So we haven't uncovered much about them, which is fine because we'll be able to uncover still enough. So we have everyone there. Again, I don't do 23 or 24s or anything like that. So that already, lowers mine. So I'm down to this to start. So after block shed, we're looking at tackle. And again, not everything's open, but, we'll find things that are. So then we go to hit power there. The ones that are unlocked are all good. So then we go to play rec. We have a D here. That's not what we want. So we've already eliminated him. And then after play rec, we're going to go to pursuit. Pursuit, they're all pretty good. And that's pretty much all you look for. You don't need to look for any specific physicals when it comes to a SAM. There are ones that can help, obviously speed, stuff like that. But they're not as big of a deal, really, when it comes down to things, as some of the other things, some of the other schemes, and what they have. But, I mean, if you do want a physical to look for, you would want to look at strength, would be kind of the physical you want to look at. So, I mean, we can go there. So, I mean, solids are okay. You wouldn't want to go below solid. But they're all pretty much there. So they're all kind of meeting in there. We want to wait for more grades. So that's what we'll kind of unlock down the road. Now we're going to go ahead and move to Mike. The Mike's the quarterback of the defense. He sees everything. So the must-have attribute for a Mike is going to be zone coverage. Number one attribute you want to look for. So we're going to go to Mike, go to zone. And again, anybody with a C or higher, or that has not been uncovered yet, because we're going to uncover things as the weeks continue to progress and stuff like that, and then that's when we'll be able to eliminate them and as we go on. So again, I'm going to remove my ages. Only move 2 this time. All right, so we've got our grouping here. So after zone coverage, you want to look at play rec would be the next one. So we're going to look at play rec and see if we have any Ds. We do not. Next is going to be awareness. Do we have any low ones? We do not. Next would be tackle and pursuit. So tackle's here. We've got one off the board. Harper's a D. Don't want him. So we already knocked him off. Then we go back down. And now we're looking again to pursuit. So F off the board. D off the board. D off the board. So and right there, we're down to 5. Again, no big physicals, but if you want a physical to look for to help narrow it down some more, the physical that would be the most important for this position is going to be speed. So I would stay at good or above, which would mean the solid's gone and the decent's gone. So that brings us down to 3. Now, remember, you can also look at Mike's for Sam's and for Will's. I'm not going to spend the time doing that on here because it just takes a while to go through all 5 of those for every single one and to keep them on and stuff like that. But you can do that. But we're going to go ahead and move on to Will's. And the Will is your eraser. He's your sideline to sideline problem solver. So again, the number one attribute that he's going to need is going to be zone coverage. So we're going to go back over to zone. There we go. And you're going to want to, again, anybody that's a C or higher and uncovered, which is, once again, everybody in this case. Then we're going to go over to the ages, again, for my case. And I'm removing the older players. All right. And then after zone, you want to look at play rec. Well, there's an F there. He's gone. That's everything for that. So next would be awareness. There's a D there. He's gone. Next would be tackle. So there's tackle right there. So tackle is good. Pursuit is good. And then play rec, we already did, and that's good. So zone coverage, pursuit, tackle, and play rec. So again, if you really want to do a physical, once again, speed would be the one for them. So same thing, you're not really going to want under good. So let's go ahead and get to that. We'll move over to speed. Solid's gone. Elite, elite, good, elite, good, elite. So we're good with the wheels now. Now we go to corners. Okay, and corners, these guys are what allows the disguised scheme to work. If they can't hold up in man, then nothing else matters. So the number one most important is obviously for attributes is man coverage. Again, you're going to do anything that's a C or higher to start. You'll be raising that later on, but for now you're just doing C or higher. And then anything that's not uncovered. In this case, we have everything uncovered because it's our national scout. So you'll sort it. And again, I don't do 23, so I'm going to remove to 23-year-olds. And again, you don't have to do that part. It's just what I do. Okay, so I've got that. So now I've got all that down. So then after man coverage, you want to look at press. Let me go down to the bottom. All right, here's press. D, it's gone. D gone. D gone. F gone. So we've knocked off a few right off the bat, just off of that. So now we're going to go down here again, and then after press is awareness. If they don't have an ability to get a C or higher, they're off the board. Off, off, off. All right, so now we're down to this for our corners. After awareness is play rec. D, gone. D, gone. All right, and then after play rec, you go to your physical. So there's only two physicals I pay attention to. First one is acceleration. They need to have great acceleration. At least good. Solid, not going to cut it. He's gone. Then, of course, speed in general. I'm okay with good. I prefer great. I will not go under good. But all of them are good for now, so I've got my cornerbacks situated now. Now we go to free safety. In this scheme, your free safety is kind of another one of your erasers. It's your disguise manipulator. They need to be high when zone coverage and pretty quick. So the first thing we're going to look for is attributes. And again, it's zone coverage is the most important. Again, it needs to be a C or higher, no Ds, and then uncovers. And again, free safeties are trunk safeties you can mismatch. I'm not going to in this one. I'm just doing position by position. So we'll remove 23s again. All right, so there's our group for that. After zone coverage, you have play rec. There's a D, gone, F, gone. Next is going to be awareness. D, he's gone. Next is going to be pursuit. That's all fine. And then after that, you got to go to attributes. Physicals. And the only physical that you're going to look for is going to be speed. Gone, gone, good stays, decent, gone, solid, gone. I want good or higher. You can settle with a little bit lower. I won't. So that's my only free safety option. Now we go to strong safeties. Now strong safeties is kind of your Swiss Army knife. He blitzes, he covers, he hit sticks, all that good stuff. So first thing you got to look for strong safety is zone coverage. Again, C or higher, and then anyone that's uncovered. All right, so now that we've got that, again, I'm going to do my age stuff. All right, so now that I've got that, after zone coverage, the next most important one for a strong safety is tackle, because he's your last line of defense most of the time. So he needs to be able to tackle. A D does not cut it. So D is gone. Next, it's going to be hit power. He needs to be able to lay the wood, so to speak, on runners. So let's go to hit power. Okay, everybody's good for there. Next would be play rec. There's a D and a D, so they're gone. And then after play rec, it's going to be block shed. So find our block shed on here, right here. It's all okay. Next thing we look for is physicals, and we're going to look for acceleration. Solid's okay. Good or higher is better. And then speed. Again, I don't do below good. So that eliminates all three of them. You can go to solid. It's all based on what you want, but I do want some speed in my defense too to go with the power. So I've only got one player. So, and just like that, I now have my favorites board. So I now have 27 players that I'm looking at possibly drafting. Okay. I have, as you can see, a top 5 round ones all the way up to undrafted free agents that fit what our roles are. So, and that's the key thing, is this helps you find, I mean, these are very well could be 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. This could be 10 players that are day 3 or higher that might end up being a huge gem for you and a huge steal that you wouldn't have really found otherwise if you weren't doing it by the proper attributes. So now that that is done, we need to figure out our focus players for this week. So how I do those is going to be typically the ones that are hardest to figure out. So like I said before, the hard ones to really figure out when you're looking for different players and doing things is corners, free safeties, and edges. But when you've got them in, like, Regis, stuff like that, they're pretty easy to figure out once they start unlocking. But all my SAMs and stuff, we don't really have stuff information for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort this by projection. So anybody that's, I have a strong safety, we don't have a highlight on him. So he's going to end up probably being, I'm going to want to scout him, and I'm going to want to look at a couple of these wills because we've got corners figured out and stuff like that. So we're going to look at them if we have it. So I'm going to do Banks, Ulbrich, and then we're probably going to do one of these wills. Or I might do this Mike since it's around 3 just to see. We'll see. But let's go ahead and set our focus players now. So scouting, focus. Favorites. Got a strong safety is going to be 1. Free safety. And then we'll start from the bottom and work our way up. So we have a Mike who's got A, awareness, good field general, good possibility for Mike. Remember, Wilson's getting up there in age too, so I'm going to look at him. So confirm. Yes. And now you are done with this until right before the draft. You really don't need to touch scouting or anything anymore. Now, the next thing you really want to do when it comes to this stuff is like the free agency portion where you sign players. And other than that, like I said, you want to keep going until you get to the next section of the focus players. All right, after doing free agency, we were able to get most of our players back that we wanted to re-sign. And Harrison Smith did retire, so there's a few signings we had to do. But we get to the free agency recap week, and this is where your final scouting is going to go into effect. So you're going to go ahead and go right to your board that you've already got. And we're going to go position by position again. We're going to go to left edge. We only had one. And let's make sure that they fit the scheme that we want. Remember, how we're finalizing our board is if they have the physicals, the letter grades, and they fit the role that we want, have no fatal flaws, have at least one elite trait, and they strengthen our disguise. That's what we're going to look for, and that's what we're going to want to possibly draft. So for edge rushers, remember the top trait is power moves, which is a B, so that's perfect. Block shed is a C. Strength we'll look for in a second, but we have two more attributes. We have tackle, which is a B, and then play rec, which is a C. For physicals, let's get to him. Looking at acceleration, which is good, and then strength, which we want really great. And it is great. So he looks like a pretty good prospect, and he's only a day 3. Now right edge, same thing. We'll look at, we got good acceleration. Let's look at strength. Great strength. And then the attributes. So we're looking at power moves. C to an F. Block shed is a C. Tackle is a C. Play rec is a B. So it's a little iffy unless we see at least power moves are. So the fact that it's C to an F, I'm going to lean towards we're probably not going to have him, but we will see what happens. For D tackles, remember we're looking at block shed and power moves. Block shed, they're all good. Power moves, they're all good. And then hit power. Oh, that's a D to an F, so he's going to drop off. And then awareness. So that's all good so far for the last 3. And now for physicals. Remember, we're only really looking at strength. And they're all great, so we will leave them on there. And then for Sam linebackers, we have any? Yes, we did. We had quite a few, that's right. So let's go to attributes, as more should be unlocked now. So we're going to start off with block shed. They all need to have an opportunity for a C or higher. So he has that. For tackle, we're good. Hit power, we're good. Play rec, we're still good. And pursuit, we are still good. And then we want to make sure we're looking at strength for them. Strength is a big part that I like to look for. You know what? We're going to go ahead and take out the solids and leave the goods in there. I think that's our best opportunity. The solids will work, but I want to slim down my choices a little bit, so I'm going to go with those 3. Those 2, sorry, for Sam. You got Jake Ford and Zach Williams. And then for Mike, the first thing we're going to want to look for is going to be zone coverage. Oh, That's right, helps if I go to attributes first, right guys? So let's resort again. So let's go ahead and go over to zone coverage. It's good. Play rec. They're all still okay right now. Awareness. They're all still okay right now. Tackle. Oh, well, Fernandez is gone. And then pursuit. They're okay for now. So we want to make sure there's no like marginal speeds. That's the big thing. You don't want any speed like marginal or below. Really, it's good or below, and they're both pretty good there. So we're going to go with those, and look, it looks like we have one unlocked from our, from our scouting from before. It's around 304. That's actually around 2 to 3 talent that fits our role. So that's actually could be a steal for us. Let's check out our wills. Let's go to attributes. All right, and then on will, we want to look for zone coverage first. And they're good there. Then it's pursuit. They're all good there. And then tackle. They're all still good there. Then play rec. Oh, we got our first gone. Cabrera is gone. And then the rest seem to be okay still for now. So then we're going to separate it with physicals. We'll go over to speed. And all their speed is good. So for now, we got quite a few wills that we're going to look at. Corners. As you can see, everyone that we have, we've got a 2 to 3 that's rated a 3 or 4, but then we have a 2 to 3 that's a round 1, and a round 1 that's a top 5. So that'd be a huge pickup for us. And then a 1 to 2 that's a round 1. So let's see if they stay on our board afterwards, after all this. So remember, I'm looking at speed. Good and great. Not too happy with the good. So we may be probably dropping him, maybe, but we'll keep him for now. We'll let the attributes be the deciding factor. So what attributes do we need? First is man coverage. Okay, it's all good. Really, you don't want anything below an A, essentially, for the scheme that you're doing. But obviously, you're not going to get A's very often on man coverage. We have one, which is why he's a top 5. But anyways, going back to that. So you got zone coverage, which are okay. Play rec, they're all good there. Awareness, looks like they're all good for now there. Pursuit. Oh, they don't have pursuit on here for them now. Interesting. They have it when you're looking through in a different one, but not now. Interesting. So pretty much all you got to do to make up for that is going to be acceleration. Or change of direction. You can look at like solid. It's kind of rough. Speed is only good. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and remove Roundtree, and we're going to go with those 4. Now we're going to go to our free safety. It's a 3 to 4. That's a day 3. Let's see if he stays on our board. Again, for physicals, the only physical that matters is speed. Marginal poor. That doesn't sound good. But as our only option, we might leave him on there just because of a last round pick. Let's see what we have here. So now, again, zone coverage. Ooh, that's a C. Play rec is a C. Awareness is a C. Pursuit is a C. So average player, not too bad for a, a backup, a secondary one just to fill in. Definitely not a starting caliber. One we would normally cut, but we'll see. And then this round one, hey, we got another round one that's a top 5. Let's look at our strong safeties. So obviously zone coverage, and that's an A. Tackle, and that's a B. Hit power, and that's an A. Play rec, and that's a B. And then block shedding, and that's a C. And then we want to look at speed just a tad, but it's not as important for strong safeties. It's great. All right, so now we have our board right before draft week. We're down to 20 players. So now what I want to do is we're going to look at the talent levels that they've come up. So we have 2 round 1s that are top 5s. Some round 1s. And around 2 to 3, so we got a steal there. So ideally we want Andrews, Banks, and Tulach. But let's see. So Andrews and Banks, let's see where they plan on being drafted and where we're at. So we're picking 9th, and it looks like they're both going to be available to us at 9. Andrews doesn't go until 11, so we don't want to move back at all. We're going to lose him. But I want to see, and then Banks is going 23. So we have a decision to make on what's most important to us. But we're going to go ahead and do our scouts now. And to do that, we want to see if we have any more steals at positions of need. Like, I'm interested to see where this Haran lands, so we're going to go ahead and do him. We'll see this edge at 3. And then we have had a bunch of wills and whatnot. Let's go ahead and do that just to confirm there. And then we advance to draft week. All right, and we are in draft week, and we can go ahead and verify our stuff here. Let's see what we got. And they're saying they're undrafted, and that Will Winter is around 2 to 3. But regardless, we have who we want on our board. So now we're going to go into the draft with those players and select those players and those players only. So let's go ahead and start the draft. Make our selection and go to our favorites and see who is available. So we've got Andrews and Banks. So we've got Metellus for now, but these are both generational. But having a generational corner, especially at 6 feet and meets all those categories, that's hard to bypass. I mean, solid jumping, great speed. A's pretty much across the board, all the important categories. It's hard to pass up on him. So I think we're going to go with Piercy Andrews as our first pick. And he was ranked 4th in true value. We ranked him at 9. High football IQ, stands out on film, sticky in man coverage, understands and executes zone assignments as well. Player profile, unfortunately not a dev trait, but he has 94 speed, 86 jumping, 93 change of direction, 85 agility, 93 acceleration, and 60 strength. I mean, and then with those skill sets, I mean, you can't ask for much better than that anyways. I do wish he was a dev trait. It kind of sucks that he's not. But that's not something that we're too concerned about because he's going to play the role that we need him to play. So now let's go ahead and advance to our round 2 pick. All right, so now we're in round 2. Let's see what our selections are and who is available. So we'll go to our favorites tab. And this is what we've got available. So we got a couple of 1 wills, but we have a will that's guaranteed to be a 2. We didn't get to see what these 2 were. but Winter fits it pretty good as well. And then we've also got this Mike that's in round 3 that we could pull out possibly. We do have a pick in round 3, so I'm going to hope that he's still there. And we're going to go with this Will. Peyton Winter, draft player. He was 76 in true value. We drafted at 41 overall. He's not a hidden dev, but he has the traits that we look for. So sometimes you take what you want, what you need, based off of what you're thinking. He's 22, good speed for a Will. You know, agility, acceleration, all that lines up pretty good. His skills, I mean, pretty good. A is where it matters. A in zone coverage, A in injury, A in awareness, A in stamina, A in pursuit, B in play rec, B in man coverage even. I mean, he's a great coverage guy. He's not great off finesse moves and power moves, but we don't need him to be. We just need him to be able to block shit, which he is fairly decent at, and he can tackle fairly decent. So he fits our role pretty good. So let's go ahead and jump to round 3. All right, we are in round 3. Let's see if we're able to get our steal here. And we are going to get our Mike. Bobby Tulach. 55 in true value. We drafted him at 73. Quick enough to stay with most tight ends and halfbacks. Plays with good football IQ and recognition. Rarely misses tackles. It's not a hidden dev, but he has 89 speed, 76 strength, 77 jumping, 73 change of direction, 80 agility, 90 acceleration. And again, pretty good across the board, including A in awareness. All right, and now our next pick is in the 4th round, so let's go ahead and skip to that. All right, so now we're in the 4th round. Let's go ahead and make our pick here. And now we just have undrafted free agents and a day 3 here, but they're all in our category. So we're just going to kind of fill in our blanks now. So let's go ahead and we'll draft Haran just because he fits what we need as far as scheme and attributes go. He's ranked 214, but still C+. He's a hidden dev, so good developmental piece. You know, not too bad. And with him being 313 pounds as an edge, we might even be able to move him down to D tackle, and he might end up making a really solid, like 2-tech or something maybe. But let's go ahead and advance to round 7, which is the rest of our picks. All right, and in round 7, we have 3 picks this draft. So let's see if we still have 3 players on our board. And we do. So we're going to take this defensive tackle, huge nose tackle, 348 pounds, 124 in true value. We drafted him at 201. Not hidden dev, but 91 strength, 70 speed, 80 acceleration. So not too bad for a guy that big. Skills, average crossbar. Like I said, these are just fillers in this round. So let's skip to our next one. Make another selection. Will again. Say that's a really bad pick, but he's hidden dev. So, you know, 86 speed, 78 jumping, 77 change, 82 agility, 87 acceleration. Skills, pretty decent across the board. We got a lot of C to Fs though. That's the only bit worrisome thing, but it is what it is. And let's go to our last pick of the draft. All right, and our last pick is going to be, let's see, should we go Zach Williams or Victor Gomez? Well, we signed a Mike, we drafted one. Let's go ahead and do a Sam. 206 true value, we drafted at 219. 85 speed, 77 strength, 80 jumping, 75 agility, 86 acceleration. All right, let's go ahead and go to a draft recap. And there's ours, 79 overall, 70, 73, 66, 68, 62, 66. So not too shabby. These seem low, but remember, they're not starters. We were looking for depth, and they play the roles that we need. So even if they end up having to step in, the AI logic is going to play them the way they should play, so they will actually play above their overalls. But even still, I mean, a 79 overall corner, a 70 Will, 70th, I mean, these are 3 technical starters right here. And let's go ahead and look at the entire NFL. Let's see, the highest overalls We got the 4th highest overall, and we had pick 9. Banks was another one of our options. We were looking at him, but we needed a corner more than we needed strong safety right now. We weren't going offense, and then defense. We were looking at him, but just ended up not going with him. He was the one that's 299 pounds, but I wasn't going to waste a first round pick on that. So, you know, it is what it is. You know, let's go to round 2. Let's see for overalls. I think we had one of the lowest overalls in this round, but it fit what we needed for the will. You know, he was a pretty much not necessarily a steal, but he's what we needed where we needed him. For round 3, we had a steal in Tulach, you know, 3rd highest ranking overall as far as overall goes, but all their stats fit what we need. So let's go ahead and advance week. And then once you're here, you can use these same things for the free agencies when you're going through just signing things. That's what I've got for you guys. And just remember, when you're drafting, you know, most players, they draft talent. In the Disguise 3-4, you're wanting to draft roles. You draft responsibilities. You draft the pieces that make the disguise work. That's how you build a defense that doesn't just survive. It confuses, it frustrates, and it dominates. And that's what you want from this scheme. So that'd be it for this episode. I am going to go ahead and close by re-going over all of the individual positions and the traits that you're looking for, along with some B-roll footage for those, just so you can see them. So if you like this episode or it helps you out, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to keep joining so you get notifications when the next schemes come out. I'm not sure, but I think based off of the most recent poll, I believe it was the base 4-3 might be the next guide. It was either that or vertical zone run, so I'll have to double check that to see what the next guide will be. But without further ado, let's go through the checklist one final time. All right, we're going to start off with the edge rushers. So for the 3-4 disguise, both of them are going to be power rushers. So your must-have attributes is going to be power moves. That's the number 1 trait that you want, followed by block shed, tackle, and play wreck. The physicals that you're going to look for is strength, you want at least great, and an acceleration, you want at least good. Other than that, the only thing that you really need to watch out for is immediate red flags. If they have marginal strength and D or an F in block shedding or poor acceleration, they are immediately taken off the board. You shouldn't even look at them if you see any of those 3 specific things. Ideally, they have everything that I've mentioned up here. But that's kind of on you to decide beyond that. Now we'll go to D tackles. With defensive tackles, obviously in the 3-4, you have 3 starters. They're all going to be labeled as nose tackles. So your must-have attributes for them is going to be block shed, followed by power moves, hit power, and awareness. For the physicals, the number 1 thing is strength. It's the number 1 attribute physical. You want elite. Great can work, but you don't want to go any lower than that. But ideally, you want elite at all times for your defensive tackles. And you also want them to be 300 plus pounds. Main red flags is block shedding of C to an F or lower. Any defensive tackles that are undersized, so you know, like your 280s, stuff like that, or anyone with poor strength. So essentially anyone with good strength or lower, take them off your board. You do not want to recruit them for the 3-4 disguise defensive scheme. Next, we'll go to the Sam linebackers. For Sam linebackers, they're run stoppers in this scheme, but how they play run stopper depends on the playbooks that you're running and the team around you and what roles we need them to do. So the must-have attributes for them would be block shed, which is a number 1 attribute to look for Sam linebacker, followed by tackle, hit power, play wreck, and pursuit. The physicals to look for is you want at least to have solid strength and solid acceleration. If you see any of the weak or decent type block shedding, poor strength, or poor play recognition, those are automatic red flags. Remove them from your board. All right, so now that's Sam. Let's go ahead and jump to Mike linebacker. For Mike linebacker, they're listed as pass coverage. Your must-have attributes going to be zone coverage, play recognition, awareness, tackle, and pursuit, with zone coverage leading the way with a close second of play rec. They're, like I said, they're the QBs of your defense. So acceleration, you also want to make sure it's good, solid or higher. Speed needs to be good or higher. If they have marginal speed, they're off the board. Poor awareness, so below a C, they're off the board. And if they have the C and F or lower zone coverage, you should probably just take them off the board. They're not really worth it. All right, so now we're going to go off to will linebacker. For will linebacker, your must-have attributes are going to be zone coverage, pursuit, tackle, and play rec. Ideally, whenever I say all of these must-haves, ideally these are all Bs or higher. You can do Cs as a last resort just to keep somebody on your board for like depth fill-in, but ideally, especially for your first, second, third round picks, especially on the number 1 trait, you need to have B or higher. And then for physicals, you want speed to be at least good and acceleration to be at least solid. The main red flags for will linebackers is having below a C in zone coverage or having poor speed. That's going to screw you every time with the will linebackers. But now that wills are done, we will jump to cornerbacks. For cornerbacks and man-to-man, man coverage is the number 1 trait for this position, followed by press, awareness, play recognition, and acceleration. The only physicals you really need to look for is speed. You want at least good speed or higher. And if you do want a secondary one, or you're in a toss-up between which ones, you can add in their change of direction. Now that does help cornerbacks, but it's not something that's as important as the other stuff, because that kind of falls into how they play their role. As far as red flags, C or lower man coverage. Again, C's are fine for depth, but you want B or higher for, especially CBs 1 and 2 or 3. For press, obviously you don't want poor press on there because that needs to be a key thing for them. And then anything below good speed, get rid of. You don't need slow corners. Even good's pushing it to some extent. So that's how to properly draft for corners. Now we're going to go ahead and do free safeties. For free safeties, the must-haves for these hybrids is zone coverage, play recognition, and awareness. The physicals you're looking for is speed, is good or higher. Red flags is poor zone coverage or lower speed. So if you have zone coverage below a C, especially, or speed below good, take them off the board. They're not worth it. All right, and then we'll go to the last position, which is strong safeties. For strong safeties, you must have attributes as zone coverage, tackle, hit power, play recognition, and block shedding. So all of those need to be ideally B or higher. You can do C's, but the main red flags to watch for is tackling of solid or lower, zone coverage of essentially C or lower, and then block shedding of C or lower. You see any of those 3, they're really red flags. C's, like I said, are okay for depth. Do not use C's for especially starters or first-year starters, stuff like that. But that will do it for this video, guys. I went ahead and broke through all that stuff for you so you could pause it if you needed to take notes or whatnot. This is perfect, especially if you use such as my West Coast zone run scheme. You've got that offensive guide now. Now you've got this defensive guide. So if you do happen to use both of those schemes to start out, you've got the perfect drafting setup now. You've got the playbook combos. You've got the settings and the sliders. So you take all those videos around and you've got the perfect CPU versus CPU realism ecosystem being built by me for you. And now all you have to do is utilize the tools I'm giving you. So don't forget to comment down below if this helped you, what you like about it, and what scheme do you want to see next. I will have a poll going up shortly for that. And other than that, make sure you're subscribed to help push this out there. When you guys subscribe, it tells me you're liking this type of content, so I will keep making guys like this and try to push them out more. And we are on our goal to 1,000. We're about at 760, I believe, last I checked. So we're getting very close to hitting that 1,000 subscriber mark. And then obviously our next goal will be 2,500. Really want to get out there trying to become the main Madden guy as far as CPU versus CPU goes for you guys, as far as guides, franchises, rebuilds, team builder, the whole shebang. You know, I've always been in the background, kind of just doing it on my own. I've always answered people's questions on other videos and stuff like that, and just at the point now where I feel like I'm more beneficial being out to the public now, and really working with you guys more in a social setting. You know, having community chats, and eventually maybe even discords, and times maybe we'll build franchises together, and maybe I'll do a franchise where I have some of my subscribers, as you get those memberships that are now up and available. There are ones where I will build you your own specific team builder teams. Um, whether it's my way of building it for you, or you have a certain team that you want built and you just don't like dealing with the system, there is a membership tier for you to be able to get that from me. So make sure you guys check that out, subscribe, make sure you hit those notification bells, click the like button on this, and I will see you guys in the next episode or next guide. And as always, Skol!